Alright, so we're going to start with our vehicle inspection. We start at the top of our sheet, tractor, then semi-trailer. Start with the tractor, the air and electrical connections. We're going to make sure that both of our air lines are properly secured and connected. Listening for any audible leaks. It can also feel for audible leaks. We're going to check the air lines as they connect up to the trailer. Make sure there's no cuts in the air lines, no bulges, and make sure our air lines do not drag on our catwalk. Electrical connection. Make sure it's seated, and make sure the safety latch is over our electrical connection. Make sure there's no cuts on electrical lines, no frays, and as well, it cannot be dragging on our catwalk. Moving to our coupling system, we have our mounting bolts. We're going to make sure that all of our mounting bolts are accounted for, they're properly secured. We're going to look for any shiny metal or any rust, seepage that show signs of a loose mounting bolt. Our platform, we're going to check our platform, make sure it's properly secured, properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or damaged. It is not. Our locking jaw and lever, you actually have to check from the back side of your fifth wheel on the looking through the trailer and make sure it's properly wrapped around your kingpin, and also make sure it's not cracked, bent, or broken. It's properly mounted. Our release arm right here, we're gonna make sure our release arm is properly secure, properly not cracked, bent, or broken. And since it is coupled to the trailer, we'll make sure it's always pushed in, showing that it's in lock position. Our fifth wheel skid plate is right here. We're gonna make sure our fifth wheel skid plate is properly secure, properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken. While we're here, we're also gonna check the gap in our apron, make sure there's no gap. For our fifth wheel wheel pins, they're on the inside on this fifth wheel. So you're gonna check from the back side, make sure they're properly secure, and they're actually locked onto the teeth on the tractor. All right, moving on to our semi-trailer. We're gonna move to our air and electrical connections. We're going to make sure that our service, our emergency airlines are properly secure, properly mounted to our glad hands. We're going to make sure there's no leaks here, and we're going to check the electrical connection, make sure it's properly mounted, and that there's safety latches over it. Our coupling system, your kingpin, you need to check your kingpin before you couple your vehicle, and make sure your kingpin is properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken. Now that we're already coupled, the only way to check is come from the back side and look through the opening on our fifth wheel skid plate to make sure our kingpin is not cracked, bent, or broken. Our apron, we're going to check our apron from this side all the way across, make sure it's not cracked, bent, or broken, and that there's no breaks on any other welds on our apron. And again, while we're here, we're going to check and make sure there's no gap between our apron and our skid plate. Moving up to the front of our vehicle. What I do to this side of the vehicle, I'm going to do the other. I'm going to start with my lights, start with my headlight, make sure our headlight's not cracked or broken, make sure it's properly secure, properly mounted. Headlight should be white light. On the bottom here, this is our turn signal, it should be amber in color. On the side here, we have our marker. This should be properly secure, properly cracked or broken, and it should be amber in color. Visor lights. Visor lights have to be properly secure, properly not cracked or broken. Our hood mirror, we're going to make sure it's properly secure, properly not cracked or broken, and make sure that the mirror itself is not cracked or broken, and make sure it is clean. Alright, we're going to move into our engine compartment. Here's our oil fill cap. If we need to top off and add oil, this is our dipstick. We're going to take our dipstick out. We're going to wipe it off. We're going to put it back in, pull it back out. The oil should be between the fill and full line. Coolant levels, we have to walk around the vehicle. To our coolant reservoir. We're going to make sure our coolant reservoir is properly secure, properly mounted, is not cracked or broken, and make sure there's no leaks on our coolant reservoir. While we're here, we check the hose coming off the bottom of our reservoir and make sure it's not having bulges or slices in it and there's no leaking on there. We need to make sure that the reservoir is between the max or the minimum and the max fill lines. Make sure that we have enough coolant. Power steering, we're going to go to the other side. Our power steering reservoir needs to be properly secure, properly not cracked, broken. We need to check the bottom of it and the hoses coming off the bottom of our steering fluid reservoir and make sure they are properly secure, not sliced or broken. There's no leaks. We're looking for any visual leaks. If we need to add power steering fluid, this is our cap right here. Our water pump, we need to walk back around. Water pump on this vehicle needs to be properly secured, properly mounted, not cracked or broken. It is belt driven. We need to check our belt, make sure it's not cut or frayed, and it can have no more than 3/4 inches of play in the belt. Move it back around to the alternator. We need to make sure our alternator is properly secure, properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken. We need that it is belt driven as well. We make sure there's no more than 3/4 inches play in the belt and it's not fraying or torn. While we're here, just check all the wiring coming off the alternator, make sure the wires are loose and make sure they are not frayed. Leaks and general leaks and hoses. We look underneath the vehicle and inspect underneath the vehicle for any possible signs of any leaking. If the vehicle's been running, it will have water underneath of it. That's not a leak, that's just your condensation. Air compressor. Right here is our air compressor. We need to check our air compressor, make sure it's properly secure, properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken, and then we can listen for any audible leaks off of the air compressor. The vehicle does not have a master cylinder, and our automatic transmission is sealed, so we cannot check the fluids on our automatic transmission. Moving on to our steering. All right, so our steering components. We have our steering linkage. We need to check and make sure that that is not cracked, bent, or broken. Make sure the boot up here doesn't have any cuts in it. U-joints, make sure they are properly secure, properly mounted, and properly lubed. Look for any shiny metal. Steering box, make sure it's properly secured, properly mounted, it's not cracked, bent, or broken. And you check the hoses coming off of it, make sure they are not cut. They're also properly secured, properly mounted, and there's no visible signs of any leaking of any steering fluid. Our pitman arm needs to make sure it's properly secured, properly mounted to our idler arm. Again, these cannot be cracked, bent, or broken to our steering knuckle. We're going to check on both, make sure the castle nut and the cotter pin is accounted for between the idler arm and the pitman arm, the idler arm, and then the idler arm and our steering knuckle. Again, castle nut and cotter pin. Our front wheel, we'll do this side, we'll do the other. No less than 4:30 seconds before I forget. Also, no more than 10 degrees play and your linkage. Tires, no less than 4/32 seconds an inch of tread depth. You need to make sure your tires are evenly worn across. When you check your tires, starting from the inside, working your way out, you make sure there's no cuts, no bulges, and also check around the rim. Make sure your tires properly sealed to your rim. You'll hear an audible leak. Again, check the exterior, check the interior, and then you're gonna check the exterior the same way. No cuts, no bulges, and we're gonna check and make sure that tire is completely sealed to that rim. With our rim, we're going to start from the interior. We're going to make sure the rim's not cracked, bent, or broken. There's no illegal welds on our rim. Checking all the way around. And then going to come to our exterior, doing the same thing. Checking our rim, make sure it's not cracked, bent, or broken, and there's no illegal welds. While you're here, make sure that your valve stem and your valve cap are both metal, and the tires must be inflated to 100 psi. Lug nuts need to be properly secured, properly mounted. Look for any shiny metal or rust seepage. That will let you know if you have a loose lug nut. Your hub seal, you're going to make sure all your bolts are accounted for on this vehicle, and you're going to look for any oil splatter around the inside of the rim, and there is none, so the hub seal is good. Moving on to our front suspension. This truck has, on the front, has shocks and it has springs. We're going to start by checking, make sure our springs are properly mounted front and rear. Make sure they're not scissoring, cracked, bent, or broken. There's no missing springs or leaps. Shocks, we're going to make sure that they are properly mounted top and on the bottom, and then we're going to check our shock for any cracks and any visual signs of any leaking. U-bolts, we're going to make sure our U-bolts are properly secured and properly mounted. U-bolts cannot be cracked, and we're going to check the bottom of the U-bolts on the underside and make sure the nuts are accounted for. Front brakes, we're going to start with our airline. Make sure our airline has no cracks, no bulges, and make sure it's properly secured, properly mounted, and you're going to listen for any audible leaks. Which leads to our brake chamber. Make sure the brake chamber is not cracked, bent, or broken, and make sure it's properly mounted. And we're going to listen for any audible leaks. That C-clamp right here also needs to be properly secured, properly mounted. The push rod needs to be properly secured, properly mounted to our slack adjuster. Make sure that neither of these are cracked, bent, or broken, and you need to check your slack adjustment. It can have no more than 1 inch adjustment in that adjuster. For us to be able to check that, we actually need to just pull on the slack adjuster here, but we're not going to do that right now. The brake drums, make sure they're not cracked, bent, or broken. Make sure they're properly mounted. And then we're going to check the inside of our brake drums and make sure there's no oil or any grease, basically looking for any contaminants. Brake shoes need to be properly secured, properly mounted, and they can have no less than 1/4 inch of padding left on the brake shoes. All right, moving on. Driver's side, again, we do this side, we'll do the other. We're gonna start with our mirror. Make sure our mirror is properly secured, properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken. Make sure the glass is not cracked or broken, and make sure it is clean. Driver's side door, we're gonna check our door handle. It is properly secured, properly mounted, it is working. We're gonna check our door hinges. Make sure our door hinges are properly secured, properly mounted, and the door is not sagging. While we're here, we're also going to check the door seal or the rubber gasket around the door and make sure it's not leaking. It's properly secured and properly mounted. Fuel tank. We need to check both our fuel tanks, make sure they're properly secured, properly mounted, not leaking, and make sure the tank straps are properly secured and properly mounted and all the hardware is accounted for. Our fuel cap needs to have a rubber gasket and a safety chain. Catwalk, make sure the catwalk's properly secured, properly mounted, bent, cracked, or broken, and make sure it's clear of any obstructions, and the steps going up to our catwalk. We're going to move up to the driver's side steps. Make sure the driver's side steps are properly secured, properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken. They're free of any obstructions. We'll open up our battery box here and make sure our batteries are properly secured, properly mounted, and the battery cables have no fraying. Lights, the only light we have on the side of the tractor at this point is right here. It's our turn signal. It's properly secured, properly mounted, not cracked or broken, and it says amber in color. Underside of our vehicle, easiest place to check right now is from the driver shaft is right here. We're going to check our driver shaft, make sure it's not cracked, bent, or broken. The U-joints on the front and the rear are properly lubed and have not shiny metal. U-joint. Exhaust system, you're going to check your exhaust system going up. You're going to look for any signs of any leaking. Basically, you're going to look for any soot anywhere along the exhaust line that's not at the end. Also, you need to make sure all your U-bolts are properly secured and properly mounted. Your frame, you're going to check your frame from front to rear. You're going to check for any cracks, any illegal welds or drill holes. We're going to make sure all the cross members are also accounted for and look for any loose bolts. Rear axle. We're going to start with our rear tires. Rear tires need to be no less than 2/32 of tread depth on all our rear tires, and they need to be evenly worn across the top. That includes from tire to tire. Starting from the interior, working our way out, we're going to check, make sure there's no slices, no bulges, and the tires are butted up to the rims properly. Again, interior, check again as we work our way out to our exterior. Our rims, again, starting from the interior, working our way out, we're going to make sure the rims have no cracks, bends, or damage, and there's no illegal welds as we come all the way out to our exterior rim. Again, once we're here, we got the metal valve stem and metal valve stem cap. Tires need to be inflated to 100 psi. Lug nuts be properly secured, properly mounted. Look for any shiny metal or any rust seepage that shows signs of a loose lug nut. Our hub seals, these have nuts on these. We need to make sure they're properly secured, properly mounted, and then they're look for any signs of any oil leakage, oil splatter inside of our rims. These tires are actually butted. They do not have spacers. So what we have is we have the two rims that are actually butted up together and bolted together. We need to make sure that there is no gap between those two rims, and then we make sure it's free of any obstruction in between the two tires all the way around. Rear suspension. Rear suspension on this tractor is spring, shock, and airbags. Starting with our springs in the front, we're going to make sure they're properly secured, properly mounted all the way to the rear. While we're right here, we're going to make sure we check those bolts, make sure they're properly secured, properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken, and make sure there's nothing missing off our leaf springs. Make sure there's not cracked, bent, or broken. We have our shocks right here, top and the bottom. We need to make sure they're properly secured, properly mounted, and we need to check our shock for any cracks, make sure it does not have any leaks. Our airbags, we need to make sure they're properly secured, properly mounted, top and bottom, and make sure there's no cuts in our airbags and there's no signs of any air leaking from the airbags. Go ahead. All right, so moving across to our front of our trailer, we have to check our bulkhead. That's the front of our trailer right here. Make sure there's no holes, no loose panels, and there are no missing rivets. At the very top, we have our lights. Those are our clearance lights. They are amber in color, must be clear. Cannot be cracked, bent, or broken. Moving down to the side of our trailer, we have our landing gear. Make make sure our landing gear is properly secure, properly mounted, cracked, bent, or broken. Make sure there are no missing bolts. And then you need to check the feet on the bottom of the landing. Make sure these are properly secured. Frame and tandem, we're going to check our cross members on the trailer as we go from front to rear. Make sure they're not cracked, bent, or broken. Make sure none of our cross members are missing all the way back here to our tandem. Have our tandem rail here. We make sure it's not cracked, bent, or broken. Here's our tandem release. Make sure it's properly secured, properly. And we make sure the pins for our tandem are fully pushed all the way out, which locks these rear wheels into place. Doors on the side of our trailer, we have no doors. We do have tie downs for our doors though. When they open up, make sure these tie downs here are properly secured, properly mounted. Lights and reflectors, starting from the top, we have clearance lights at the top, front, and rear of our trailer. Make sure those are properly secured, properly mounted, not cracked or broken. Making our way down, we have DOT tape. DOT tape can cover no less than 50% of the trailer from front to rear. And we also have our turn signal here on the side of our trailer. It has to be clear, it cannot be cracked or broken, and it must be amber in color. Moving on to our trailer tires. I'm going to come from the back side, it's the easiest way on these. They can be no less than 2/32 of tread depth left on these tires. They must be evenly worn, and they must be worn across both sets of tires. Starting from the interior, working our way out, just like we do the front tires, we're going to make sure there's no slices, no bulges, and make sure the tires are completely butted up to the rims. Again, starting from the interior, working our way out, checking both sides of each tire. We get to our exterior again, making sure there's no slices or bulges, and the tire is butted up to the rim properly. The rims, we're going to start on the interior and work our way out on our rims. Make sure our rims are not cracked, bent, or broken. There are no illegal welds. Starting from again interior and working our way out, checking each section of our rims. So we get to our exterior, we're going to check and make sure that our lug nuts are properly secure, properly mounted. There's no rust seepage and there's no shiny metal. This needs to have metal valve stems, which are on the interior on this one, and the air management system, so there are no metal caps, keeps these tires inflated. Hub seals, you need to make sure that these bolts are all accounted for and there's no metal, or there's no grease or splatter on the inside of the rims, which show signs of a loose hub seal or cracked. Spacers, these rims do not have spacers, they are butted. So we're going to make sure the rims are butted up together properly, there's no gaps. And then we're also going to make sure there's no obstructions in between the tires all around the entire tire, top to bottom. All right, we're going to move back underneath. We're going to check our suspension. This tractor only has a leaf suspension, so we're going to check on the very front and make sure that on this one they are properly secure, properly mounted. Then we're going to check and make sure the leaves are not cracked, bent, or broken. There's no missing leaves all the way to the rear. In the center, it has U-bolts holding it in place. They make sure they're properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken. And the nuts on the bottom of the U-bolts are accounted for and they are tight. Trailer brakes. We start with our brake lines. Make sure our brake lines are not cracked or bulging and they're properly secure, properly mounted. There's no air leaks. All the way to our brake chamber. Make sure our brake chamber is properly secure, properly mounted, not dented, cracked, or broken. And there's no audible air leaks. Make sure the C-clamp is properly secure, properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken. Our push rod. We make sure our push rod is not cracked, bent, or broken. It's properly mounted to our slack adjuster, which needs to be properly secured, properly mounted. And it can have no more than 1 inch of slack adjustment in our adjuster. Brake drums. We make sure our brake drums are properly secured, properly mounted. They're not cracked, bent, or broken, and there's no contaminants on the inside of the drums, no grease or oil. Brake pads need to be properly secured, properly mounted, and they can have no less than 1/4 inch of padding left on the brake pads. While we're right here, before we come out from underneath our trailer, we need to make sure that our splash guards are properly secured and properly mounted. They can have no more than 9 inches of clearance from the ground, and they must cover the tires from interior all the way to the exterior. And go ahead and come out from the vehicle. We're going to go to the back of our trailer. As we make our way around, don't forget you have marker lights here on the bottom and you have your ABS light. Rear of our trailer, we're going to start by checking our doors. Make sure our doors are properly secure, properly mounted. We're going to check all the hinges, make sure the bolts are accounted for all the way around. The door latches are properly latched, and they are actually connected top and bottom, holding that door securely closed. We're going to check the gasket around the door, make sure it is properly secure, properly mounted, is not hanging loose. On the very top, we have our marker lights, our clearance lights, correction. Make sure our clearance lights across top are red in color, properly secured, properly mounted, not cracked or broken. So we make our way down, we have our DOT tape, must cover 100% from across the bottom of our trailer doors. Takes down to our tail lights, we properly secure, properly mounted, clean, cannot be cracked or broken, must be red in color. And our bottom bumper needs to have 100% DOT tape across the bottom of the entire bumper. Exterior, as far as my inspection is concerned, I gotta get in the cab, I close up the hood. Before you get in, can you please help me check the exterior lights?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Right lights,
Yes.
left turn signal,
Yes.
right turn signal,
Yes.
forward flashers,
Yes.
left turn signal as you walk to the back. Always.
Yes.
Tail lights,
Yes.
left turn signal,
Yes.
right turn signal,
Yes.
always.
Yes.
Right turn signal,
Yes.
always.
Yes.
Once you're in, if you could, please put your seatbelt on.
Yes, sir.
As you put your seatbelt on, please check, make sure it's not cut, frayed, or torn, and also make sure that the release works properly. Thank you.
Go.
All right, so we're gonna start with our emergency equipment. Make sure we have our triangles, our spare fuses, and on the driver's side, I have my fire extinguisher is properly secured and properly mounted, and is properly charged. For our safe start, we're going to make sure that both of our safety valves are pulled out, which ensures our brakes are set. Place our foot lightly on the brake. Make sure the vehicle is in neutral. We're going to turn on the tractor on the power. Crank it up. We're going to watch for our ABS light to turn off, which it just did. All I'm going to do is straighten up the wheel, make things a little easier for myself. All right. So we're going to start with our lights, our light indicators on the interior. Left turn signal works. Right turn signal works. Right works. And our four-way indicator also works. Temperature gauge, it is rising up slowly. The truck's cold right now, so we have to watch it as it sits here and warms up. Oil pressure seems to be working fine. Our amp meter and voltmeter on this one are hidden in our menu. We'd have to flip to the menu to find that. Our air gauges, we have our primary and we have our secondary. We need to make sure that they are both working correctly. Horns, city horn, air horn, both work. I'm going to try to check our defrost, make sure it works properly. in, defrost works correctly. Windshield, we're going to make sure our windshield's not cracked or broken, and our mirrors, they're not cracked and broken. They're not. Windshield wipers and fluid, we're going to check at the same time. Works. We have our service brake, parking brake, and our trailer brake. We're going to make sure they are proper secured, proper mounted, accounted for, and they're clearly marked, which they still are. Next, we have our air brake check. Our air brake check, we are going to turn the vehicle off first. Then we're going to flip it back into the run position. All right, our gauges all work properly. We're going to check our service air brake leakage test first. So we're going to release our trailer brake and our service brake valves. We're going to press our brake in, our service brake in, and we're going to wait 1 minute. And we should have no more than 4 psi loss in that 1 minute. All right, our 1 minute's come and gone. Next, we're going to check our low air indicators, our low air indicator warning. So we're going to feather our brakes down between 50 and 70 psi. For this vehicle, it's just a red light on the dashboard. And there is our low air indicator warning. So red lights came up. Next, we're going to check and make sure our spring valves both work. So we're going to feather it down to between 20 and 40 psi. Both trailer and tractor valves should pop. And both of our spring valves did pop out. Next, we're going to crank the tractor up. And before we do anything, we're going to make sure that both our spring valves have held. Put the truck in drive. And both valves have held. The truck back in neutral. We are going to throttle the truck up. And what we're looking for is our governor cutout at 120 psi. This truck will not go above 1,000 RPM the way it's governed. If your truck can go above that, you need to hold it around 1,000 to 1,200 RPMs. Cutout should be between 120 and 130 psi, and we're going to hear a lot of whooshing sound. Alright, that was our governor cut out. So next thing we're going to do, we're going to check to make sure that our brakes are actually still working correctly. So we're going to start checking our tractor brake. To do this, we're going to release our trailer brake first, put the truck in drive, and we're just giving it just a little bit of gas to make sure the tractor brakes hold. And they held. We're going to push in our tractor brakes, our trailer brakes, check our trailer brakes, a little bit of gas. They held. Last, we're going to check our trolley brakes. So both our tractor and trailer brakes need to be in. Pull your trolley brake down. Trolley brake held. Next, we're going to do the 5-mile-an-hour roll test. And what we're going to do is make sure the tractor doesn't push or pull left or right after we start rolling forward. And our tractor did not try pushing or pulling left or right. Our slack adjusted correctly. That concludes our vehicle inspection.